Introduction. Welcome to Social Skills. In this guide, we'll teach you how to put some of the final pieces of a happy, healthy life in place. Humans are social creatures, and ignoring the sense of belonging is like ignoring your sense of smell. Modern life is pretty splintered in the 2020s. More so than any other point in my life, people are holed up in their homes, factionalized, and isolated. Since the modern age, the industrialized world has always had a lush, thriving collection of subcultures. The term subculture itself is a misnomer, as any group identified as sub most likely doesn't think of itself as beneath. Indeed, due to the before-mentioned splitting, even the middle seems strangely at odds with itself. The time has never been better to look at what binds humanity together and how we can apply that to our lives. When people concern themselves with better social skills, society benefits as much as the individual. Take these lessons to heart. Think of socializing as a skill you work out like a muscle group, and let's get physical. Let's get started. Chapter 1, Step 1. Work on you. Beyond the basics, grooming, posture, and body language, you have to ask yourself what exactly you want from society at large. What do you hope to achieve by sharpening your interpersonal communication skills? Of course, we will be going over a few specific goals, namely casual, intimate, and business, but you might have something in particular in mind. Wherever possible, I have attempted to be as conceptual as possible, deconstructing the lessons to make sure you can use parts, if not the whole. Social skills are the most far-reaching and foundational of all the life skills you can learn. Humans have demonstrated again and again that we are stronger together. Balance and reciprocity. You don't have to be beautiful to be attractive. It helps, of course, but if you can't captivate or at least engage, no amount of grooming and good genes will create lasting bonds. I have heard it said, you have to love yourself before anyone else can love you. And that's garbage. It is perfectly possible to love someone who doesn't love themselves, but the danger there is in an asymmetric love, a lopsided relationship of all take, no give, or all push, no pull. Balance and reciprocity are the rules of a solid social bond, fleeting or lasting. Inspire people to assume the best when meeting you by always having your best foot forward. Let's make sure you are someone people want to approach or be approached by. Basic self-care. It may be through no fault of your own that these lessons got skipped. Maybe you were like me and raised by a wolf, a hard-working single father who loved us and supported us, but may have missed a few finishing touches. Maybe your hard work has pushed some of these simple steps aside. Whatever the case, take a moment to consider your daily routine and how it leaves you in the world. No vanity, egotism, or any kind of mere gazing is required. Get enough sleep, wash, eat, and clothe yourself reasonably, and call it good. If makeup and fashion are essential to you, you might dedicate as much energy to it as you like, but any more than an hour tops is pushing what is expected of a mere mortal. If you do indulge either for professional or personal style, just be aware of how the time required affects your relationships. People will only accuse you of being high maintenance or a diva if they are inconvenienced by it. Sleep. Sleep is so darn important that I have to assume you know if it's a problem for you. If you are not getting at least 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night, erring on the side of 8, you are selling yourself short. Reform a nighttime routine to get that needed rest. Not only do you get energy for the next day, but long-term memory and learning are improved too. Remembering names and details from the past are all keys to lasting social connections. Sleeping together undoubtedly makes people closer, though how the rest of the relationship progresses will depend on how you deal with intimacy. Eating well. Eating good leaves you with enough energy and focus to last an entire conversation. Again, this is a simple thing, but adults just love to think the time saved by not eating will be well spent. Some hunger symptoms are tight-lipped tension, hangry, or being overly chatty and friendly. Unfortunately, for the overly chatty and friendly one, your social filter is usually dropped as well, and you have to consciously remind yourself not just to say whatever comes to mind. I know that one all too well. Of course, eating together is as famous a friend maker as drinking together, so don't be afraid to make lunch groups if asking a single person feels weird. Grooming. Grooming is about how it makes you feel as much as it makes sure you're not stinky or messy. Standards have shifted toward low upkeep, so observe the basics and consider the rest optional. Same with clothes. You have to be part of the in-group before telling the difference between punks and artists versus the homeless or transient. Most folks get by with one shower or bath a day, and as long as you're not working up a sweat, that's fine. Deodorant or antiperspirant will make sure the effects last as long as possible. If your clothes are old or don't reflect you as a person, ditch them. Shopping together, beauty appointments, and trading hygiene secrets are great bonding experiences. Hair maintenance, especially, seems to engender a willingness to chat and socialize. Look good, feel good. I have said it a few times now, but let me articulate it in no uncertain terms. We groom for them second after doing it for ourselves. While we feel about how we look is based mainly on cultural symbols and trends, it must also be about how we think and what we want. A tidy room makes you feel calm and allows you to think. Just like fresh clothes after getting clean, you feel renewed and capable. We signal the type of people we want to attract, and just as much as any peacock, bowerbird, or penguin, our displays and nests demonstrate our capability and willingness to work for kinship. A few interpersonal basics which I see lacking in adults again and again. Take no for an answer. Let others talk. Actively listen. Respect boundaries. Drives and motivations. Why do you want to form or expand your social network? Yes, I realize we all have an instinctual urge to band up and enjoy the company of our fellow humans, but what specifically do you get from it? Look at how you interact with the people you know. Consider your contributions as well as anything they may do for you. Give and take can be as trivial as listening to you complain about work or as significant as helping you move. Appreciate that everyone is the star in their own movie. Do you seek friends? A lover. Lovers. Acquaintance, friend, or lover. A large pool of casual acquaintances is a good starting point, but with no depth of any of your relationships, it can begin to feel almost as lonely as none at all. School, work, and any regular gathering of strangers create instant familiarity, which the word family roots with good reason. Besides our parents, we all begin as strangers to each other, and it is only through a long process of opening up that we allow those random faces to become beloved friends or our favorite family. The growth of a friend into a best friend is organic and should not be rushed. You can do a few things to hurry the process, but there are no shortcuts to human socialization. Because family isn't just about blood but bonds, and while we have a biological family, we also have a logical one. So, having made sure we know what we want and have put our best foot forward, let's look at where we're walking. It's essential to feel at ease wherever you go, which can also be developed. Date yourself. If you feel weird eating out alone, then you have to. Same going to a movie or anything solo. You have a right to feel comfortable in your skin. Own the space you're in. When we are young, it is crucial to surround ourselves with friends. Friendships are an important part of how we form identities. Many of us never grow out of needing constant contact, and others let everyone drift away. College and then career come and go. With days busy and nights full, we hit post-college or midlife, and suddenly everyone is focused on their families or just drifted into their own life. Unless we have developed a strong sense of self, we find ourselves isolated and depressed. Of course, picking up a book on developing social skills can help get you back out there, but relying on other people to fulfill you all the time is not healthy either. You want a strong friendship with yourself first, so foster positive self-talk as well as good hygiene. Balance in all things is key to long-term happiness. The focus here is on making connections, so let's stop navel-gazing, turn without, and cast our gaze instead upon the world. Chapter 2, Step 2. Understand them. You're looking good and feeling good. Your clothes reflect how you want to be seen as well as your personal style. You do not smell or appear upset. The time has come to decide who to approach and who to let approach you. While we always honor the individualism of people, we recognize that much of our identities come from outside stimuli. Even the most eccentric boundary pusher is reacting against society, which is to say even anarchists care enough to want change. Once we identify what forces have gathered a group together, it becomes easier to join that group. Stick to what you love. Interest groups cover anything you can imagine and more. Once you begin to explore and dig deep, you'll discover cliques within subgroups you never even imagined. Don't be afraid of getting into something new just because the people look interesting. Chances are, if you think people look intriguing or exciting, you'll find a common thread, if not shared interest. Like attracts like, and no matter one's surface, if you share a favorite trait, that will be enough to foster a bond. Even exclusive organizations recruit, and social groups are social for a reason. There is no them. Take a note from transcendental philosophies and acknowledge that we are all one. There is far more in common between one another than not. A big part of getting over your fear of making new contacts is knowing most folks want a relationship too. A creeping feeling of isolation has crept into many of our lives, and it is past time we got out and made some moves. We are wolves in the night, howling, hoping we are not alone. Many times we talk ourselves out of walking over and saying hi because we've watched too much media or were raised by toxic parents. Mean people are rare. Most of us will at least be kind, if not open to friendly overtures. Maybe the negative self-talk began with toxic loved ones or is simply chemical. Whatever the reason you have been holding yourself back, we now must ask ourselves what kinds of people we want in our lives. When we look at ourselves honestly, it becomes readily apparent what types of people we want to surround ourselves with. What do you stand for? Philosophically, it is dangerous to define yourself by what you are against. Look at what you like. What drives you? It may not be even so profound as religion or spirituality. Many creative personalities group up around their favorite pursuit, and the internet has made it even easier to find like-minded folks. Pro sports have sponsors, which means a built-in social scene. Most cities of any size have an art walk where galleries and studios are open to the public. Conventions, the Meetups website, and others like it all focus individuals into a single location. Of course, religion has served this role for millennia, and we have a plurality of them here. If one disappointed you, maybe try finding another. Remember that going to a large public gathering for the first time alone gives you the freedom to check things out at your own speed and leave if you want to without pressure. Demographics versus individuals. We can't pigeonhole people, which is to say label folks, and then limit our expectations to that bias. Neither do we usually have the mental bandwidth to take everyone as individuals all the time. Prejudice is, at the root of it all, the brain's way of saving energy, a cognitive shorthand our pattern-obsessed brain uses to make sense of the world. On the one hand, it is okay because humans tend to form cliques and subgroups all by yourselves. On the other, if you let yourself mistake the group label for an identity, then you've just sold everyone short, including yourself. Simply knowing that not everyone in the demographic identifies with it is enough. There are some anti-feminist women, senior citizens who do everything possible to turn from golden years culture, and you had better not identify a teen as a kid or an adult you know what. Don't label teens anything at all. They have it covered. Kidding aside, even in the demographics one has a choice in, the reason for being there can differ significantly. Why are they here? Consider a sci-fi convention as a lurid example. Yes, you have the core group there for the media in question, but you have people who like cosplay, unpaid custom making, science enthusiasts interested in the ideas brought up, gawkers and hawkers and artists of all kinds. Knitting circles used to be the exclusive domain of old ladies, but lately younger people and men have been getting into crochet and other related hobbies. Again, the interest varies from wanting to make stuff out of yarn to the process of tying knots into shapes to the perceived irony of young people and/or males doing something outside the norm itself. Even guerrilla crochet groups make random, usually anonymous public installations in funny or provocative places overnight. You can bet the motivation of those groups is not what motivated your Grandma Phyllis to make Mom's quilt. Follow your bliss. We don't always get a chance to do what we love for a living. Even those of us working in fields we enjoy have work to do. Lack of freedom over your day is why it is so important to pursue our ends in your personal life. Don't let expectations or societal pressures force you into relationships you hate. Not casual and certainly not intimate. Ideally, you shouldn't hate your job anyway, and if fate and fortune have conspired to place you in a situation you hate, having a solid social life is all the more critical. Find the people who stimulate you and keep their company. A good conversation should charge you up, give you ideas, and draw out the best in you. Identify the people who are constantly cutting you down, taking but never giving, and otherwise drain you, and get them out of your life. Again, if fate and circumstance force someone into your life who takes too much, ration them or cut them off entirely. Being a good friend maintains healthy boundaries, so never be afraid to put your foot down when you notice an imbalance. Scenes, haunts, and social locale. Music. You can enjoy music, play music, or write music. Making and writing music have the built-in social element of collaboration. Though you can still do it solo, get out and share. Jam and collaborate, mix and fusion. Those of us on the outside can just stand back and enjoy. Dancing or otherwise watching music is a great focus to meet around, but it is often too loud and dark to meet people. Still, a lot of life before, after parties, the edge of the crowd, and the performer's social media are all excellent places to meet like minds, to say nothing of seeing someone with a t-shirt or patch and calling it out. The smaller a performer's following, the more excited we tend to be when meeting another fan in the wild. Half the point of band merch is cultural identity signaling. This carries over to practically every interest, hobby, and thought group you can imagine. The more particular niche or small the interest group is, the more welcoming they tend to be of curious outsiders. With a few notable exceptions, groups want new members and will happily accommodate, if not recruit, fresh faces. Beyond the bar. Booze is the easy button of socializing. Its ability to become a problem, getting too loose, and annual expense are all reasons one might want to forego the club, bar, or other liquor-fueled pursuits. Coffee, tea, and quick snack stops of all kinds abound, though you might want to be a familiar face before you make casual approaches. Frequent the venue haunt, it is as they say. We tend to have our guard up when just darting in and out, so if you're going to socialize at a coffee place or restaurant, make sure it is in the seating area or someone similarly at leisure. You can charm your way past that initial ice on most of us, though always be mindful of non-verbal cues. Some people are passive and have difficulty expressing negative feelings. I mentioned hobbies and interest groups, but you can think broader than that. The information age is ushered in an area where practically any idea has a group focused around it. This is why it is important to define what you stand for instead of what you are against. At worst, this is literally a hate group. At best, you will pass the stress and agitation around in a bleak circle jerk. If you are upset enough to stand against something, find a way to work toward its solution. In other words, find constructive, positive ways to thwart what vexes you. Express yourself. Why would I place this section at the end of Understand Them? Well, after Work on You, because the self-expression I am talking about is the type that broadcasts something of our personality. It need not be anything at all, but could be your style itself. Some people will not need this lesson and might even want to rein it in. If every article of clothing you wear is a statement piece, you might be a teenager. That is not even humor, as the years between the onset of puberty and our prefrontal cortex firming up are generally times of trying new things and personal exploration. If you never gave yourself the chance to try different dress styles, modes, and even demeanors, it is never too late to reinvent yourself. Call it on a midlife crisis or golden age renaissance, because nobody will care if you change up how you dress and talk until your early 30s. Nobody thinks about you the way you think about yourself. Beyond the occasional saint or devoted loved one, you can just relax and do what you like, because the heavy scrutiny many of us labor under does not exist. We are all the main characters in our own stories. A trick of perception makes the world literally revolve around each and every one of us. The best of us observe the illusion and try not to dominate and influence every encounter we possibly can. Chapter 3, Step 3. Make small talk big. So much is made of inclusion and equity that we tend to forget the reason is not making people feel good, though it does that, but the strength that comes from a plurality of voices. Nobody is right all the time, and that means an honest person is always learning. A diverse circle of friends enriches your life in ways you can be articulated, because it will differ too wildly from person to person. You never know what someone knows. Synergy became a hot concept, then buzzword, and finally cliché. But people's power to achieve results greater than the sum of their parts remains. When everyone contributes freely, the result is a product exceeding all expectations. It is not even so profound on a social level, or more accurately, the impact of small talk is measured in social fluidity and release of tension. Because just like there are selfish materialistic reasons for diversity, inclusion, and equity, you can rationalize developing better social skills in a self-serving way too. Stress is reduced when we are relaxed, and turning a stranger into a known entity does that. The brain also releases all sorts of hormones that aid socialization, dopamine and serotonin, just two of the most famous. Once you've made yourself presentable and found a group or person you would like to present yourself to, the only thing that remains is to make a move. Just do it. Bust a move. Break the ice. The slogans and expressions we use to motivate action over fear are almost endless. It seems like every other movie and series asks the viewer to believe the most important thing a person can do in life is conquering their fear. Considering the fact that most of us are our own worst enemy, and often the only thing holding us back is ourselves, this winds up being reasonably accurate. Begin training yourself to push through negative self-talk, baseless assumptions, and biases. Take action whenever you feel socially intrigued. In the case of socializing, the stakes are so low you really have nothing to lose. Even if you totally flub, as long as you laugh it off, the other person will too. Even when making a move on a prospective partner, learning how to get shot down and not let it A. ruin your night, and B. degrade your opinion of the person who declined is a great life lesson in itself. Modern life lesson: be awesome and keep your phone out of your hands. Focus on the person you're speaking with, not letting yourself get distracted by your personal electronic device or anything else. Icebreaker. The expression break the ice is apt, as anyone who has felt a chilly social welcome and had it break into a warm reception will attest. A smile, eye contact, and maybe a firm but not crushing handshake can turn a simple hello into a solid connection. We went over clothes above, but in all honesty, the only thing you need to wear is a grin, at least. A kind greeting, open-ended questions about them, remembering their name, and a few salient details will make sure the next time you meet will not only give them the warm fuzzy of being remembered, but the extra thrill of having made an impression. Memorize a few openers if you have a hard time thinking of things to say. We don't think about studying for an exam, but think it's a betrayal of the human spirit to prepare conversations. There is nothing wrong with a bit of prep work as long as your motives are pure, no manipulation or exploitation. Shared experiences of any kind, especially pain or hardship and pleasures or joy, even minor ones, are always good, conversation fodder, and social bonding agents when experienced together. It needs to be out of your control too. The lack of personal agency over topics of small talk is important unless you intend to do something about it. See Deep Talk further on. As cliché as talking about the weather is, it is both shared and often unpleasant, so it fits these criteria nicely. Sports are the same out of your hands, prone to go either way, and are shared by a broad audience. What is considered small talk will differ from group to group. Some folks are perfectly happy to throw around complex, even inflammatory topics right away, while others may never like to talk about contentious or overly complicated issues. Read the room, and don't be afraid to backpedal or make a noticeable change of subject if you notice things taking a turn for the worst. Keep it going. Get the person talking about themselves. You can use the whole "nobody thinks about you the way you think about you" as an inverse too. It is not egotism to enjoy answering questions of opinion and taste. "Enough about me, let's talk about you" is classic for a reason. And if you notice yourself talking at length, not even about yourself, but anything, stop and pass the focus to another. It can be tempting to keep going once we get going because when we speak things aloud, we process them in a different section of our brain than when we think it, and then again when we hear our own words. This is using someone as a sounding board, and while it is more of a one-way street than we typically like, it's a crucial component of conversation as well as another selfish reason to be social. Ask open-ended questions and lean in when they answer. In this case, you want to lean in every sense of the term. Body language is a crucial part of communication, so the nonverbal signal of leaning in is vital. It also means to pay extra attention, but more popularly, I've seen it applied to mean embracing something the world expects you to reject. For example, someone calls you a freak, but you lean into it and proudly proclaim whatever unique feature made the person try to bully you. On a day-to-day level, this means if you feel repulsion from someone, explore where those feelings come from and whether they are based on bias, preconception, or genuine threats. Use cues on the person to determine what they might like to talk about. Beware of making a person feel stereotyped by making comments open-ended or exploratory. Never attempt to appear more knowledgeable than you are because no group likes pretenders in their midst. You can change the subject if it goes someplace you don't like. Be obvious if it's a point you'd like to make, or just keep making connections, mentioning related topics, and making tangents until it goes away. Conversations should be free and easy, but when all is said and done, there are just some things we don't want to discuss. Posers are apparent in their desire to socialize over participating in the activity they pretend to practice and can annoy the in-group. This isn't to say there are not people there who are also socially motivated, but if you are not there for the activity but the people themselves, you have to ask yourself, why? What about the group makes you want to know them but not participate in their interest? As long as you are following your bliss, there should be no issues because you'll already be surrounded by people doing what you love. Be honest and open. Let a conversation flow naturally, and there should be no reason to put on a false front. Break away. You will eventually have to disengage from a conversation. Pressing commitments or flagging interest on your end can make a conversation feel like a cage. Knowing how to break away can be crucial, and doing so in a way that does not offend your audience is a great skill to learn. If the gathering is sizable enough, you will be perfectly okay using the group itself as a pretext. "Oh, I just saw and don't want to miss them." Or, "Gosh, so many people I haven't seen in ages. Let's get back to this later," are both excellent ways to say goodbye. If you've been following good etiquette, your phone isn't out and in your hands during all this, so grabbing it and begging off to respond to an important text or call will be okay. Needing to go to the bathroom, get food or drinks is good too, though if you intend to avoid the person grabbing your attention again, you need to plan your move after too. While I hate plotting or game playing in social exchanges and believe in stating your intent as much as possible, sometimes you have to make accommodations for the feelings of others. At the end of the day, the only person you have to answer to is yourself. Chapter 4, Step 4. Make new friends. In the first chapter, we talked about identifying what we wanted from our relationships and why. In this one, we put that to a practical application as we begin consciously assembling a circle of friends. Not the casual acquaintances that fate threw us together with, but the like-minded folks we attract to ourselves based on mutual interest. Do not discount the power of shared experience. Know the people you went to school or work with are being acculturated to you as much as if you'd picked them out of a crowd. Choosing friends based on good conversations and healthy dynamics is always preferable to superficial similarities, so never be afraid to cross social boundaries. Having begun to chat and then have a good time, you may want to get a hold of the other person again. This is where many casual run-ins fail to take root. Neither side takes the intuitive to get contact info. After making initial contact, the second most challenging thing to do is ask for their phone number, email address, or social media contact info. With so many avenues of communication to choose from, even the most private individual should have a way you can get in touch. Take a chance on me. Bullies are rare, mean people not nearly as brave in reality as they are online. The media has conditioned many of us to expect mania and stalking as a common occurrence. In fact, you can generally go to your entire life without anyone becoming fixated on you to an unhealthy degree. It makes for good entertainment, so we see it all the time, even if not as many live it. Worse, reality television finds the most maladjusted groups to showcase, but many viewers see their own poor behavior on screen and feel validated. The risk-reward ratio with meeting new people, making first contact, and letting friends deeper into your circle is always on the positive side. Users, abusers, and the genuinely toxic are in the minority. Usually we allow many small things to pile up until it reaches a breaking point. We also have to guard against letting pet peeves affect us too much. That said, always be on guard against a con, casual theft, or other confidence-based crime. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me, works fine. Forgive once, but demand changes. Apologies that lack effort toward not repeating the behavior are empty. Professionals can treat even kleptomania. There is no place for any such behavior in friendships. The more profound your relationship, the more you have to stand your ground. Looking for love means looking for someone to balance life with, and keeping oneself happy is hard enough. Friends do not usually require a lot of accommodation, the ease of interacting with someone only when we want to, the entire point. Even long-term couples are encouraged to claim some space, a need for me time, a universal constant. Just friendship. Let's face it, hookup culture is here to stay because it plays on human drives. It can be difficult, bordering on impossible for some people to have a non-sexual friendship with someone to whom they are attracted. By the same token, many people fall into the habit of not interacting with the entire gender they are attracted to unless they are actively flirting. I cannot emphasize enough how important of a mental discipline it is to keep libido and casual friendships separate over the ordinary course of events. Modern culture has allowed for all sorts of freedom of love, and there is room in polite society for swingers, polyamory, and more. Still, you cannot flirt with everyone or otherwise sexualize every situation. State intent, be direct, and always polite. That means cheerfully moving on if your advances are declined. The old advice used to be no sex on the first date, but that doesn't seem to be the hindrance to a long-term relationship it once was. Changing attitudes towards sex mean a fair number of people just do not think it's a big deal. If your goal is monogamous intimacy or exclusive love, be sure you're upfront about it. Some people do not date friends, and some people won't hook up with strangers. Provided you do so in a polite way, even if you state your intent and the other person does not reciprocate, everyone likes to feel attractive, so very few will respond negatively. It is entirely possible to turn a friend into a lover too, so while it is not a good reason to hang around all by itself, hearts can change. There is no friend zone. If you're only approaching someone because you want to have sex with them and they are not interested, keep looking. I was always afraid of knocking someone up, creating a baby with someone I didn't love, so at least I tried to limit my dates to women I actually liked. This can be hard if the person doesn't date friends, because right about the time I decided I'd like to date them, they decided they didn't want to ruin our friendship. Be forthright, know your heart, and express your intentions early so you can avoid this kind of crossed opportunity. Consider how terrible it feels to think you have a friend only to discover they were only ever interested in getting in your pants. It's a scenario women know all too often, an objectification that is anything but flattering. You're only valuable to the person as a piece of meat. Only pursue awesome people, and even if they turn you down, you'll be surrounded by people you love. Romantic or otherwise, aim for the group you want to associate with. Be bold and break the ice by laughing at yourself. Don't assume they will reject you, but just the opposite. In sales, it is called assume the close. But in dating or even friendship, you simply call it confidence. Hello, I must be going. Things are going well, and all signs point to positive feelings. Body language is inclined toward you, smiles and laughter are shared by all, and conversation is free-flowing and enjoyable. Unless it's a friend of a friend, and even then taking this next step can still be essential to make sure they're your friend now too, you need to hit them up for their digits, though there are more communication options now than ever before. Well, this was fun. Let's try to meet up again sometime. Dude, I haven't laughed this hard in ages. Hit me up later. Oh man, I have to go. Let's do this again soon. Any sort of declaration of enjoyment and a desire to contact them in the future will do, and putting it into your own words is a good idea. Mind their reaction and offer something more public like Instagram or Twitter if they seem a little hesitant. Functionally, the platform doesn't matter. Just make sure you establish a point of contact. You may even resort to the classic, how about we meet here, same spot, same time next week, or similar unplugged approach. When to call. Don't let the agony of when to call be some kind of test. Again and again, it is a point of drama in popular media, but you can curtail this little question by telling the person when they give you their info, when you get in touch with them, better yet, ask. This isn't even a statement aimed at those seeking romance. Making friends can feel just as weird. When are you free next? I'll call you this weekend. Can I call you tomorrow? They're all perfectly fine, but again, I want you to put these phrases into your own words as much as possible. I like parties and gatherings as a pretext for getting to know specific people, as the crowd takes the burden off everyone, and the inclusion of mutual friends will help even further. Theme parties are only fun when everyone or most people are participating. For instance, throwing the links to easy, cheap costume ideas into a Halloween party invite will make sure everyone who wants to take part can. Masks, costumes, and dressing up are fun, so they can look very different depending on your social group. Formal is fun for some folks, as fashion eras, famous people, and even zombie undead are all themes you can use year-round. Make an event of deciding on the theme, which can be almost as fun as the party itself. No. Whatever your approach, taking no for an answer is the mark not only of a real gentleman, but a mature human being in general. Accepting negative responses to requests without crying or begging is asked of children, but many adults fail this primary social developmental stage. Doubly crucial in your romantic advances, accept the rejection and move on. Maintain friendly, even mild flirtation, but only if they continue to smile and incline towards you. If you have already established a little familiarity with them, you have made your interest known and might have planted a seed. However, as I mentioned before, being friends with someone only because you want to sleep with them after being denied is rude, if not plain wrong. It's okay to be sexually attracted to friends, but it can't be the only reason you're there. Be a friend. When passing people close enough to encroach on their personal space, smile, nod, and if it's not too out of place, say good morning, or whatever is appropriate. Often just a grin and nod will do, but the more whoever you see have in common, the chattier you can get rid of off the bat. Over time, this will develop into more genuine smiles, prolonged greetings, and eventual introductions. When you run into these persons in other places, the reaction will be even better. Walking dogs, minding children, and watching the same show are only the most common examples, with any communal activity as good of a shared experience as any. The more unique the incident, the better. An exclusively shared memory is even more bonding than one shared by many. Helping someone when they are in a jam is a perfect way to demonstrate what kind of friend you are. Just be sure your help is desired. Help or hinder. When someone is struggling in public, they will cast their eyes about if looking for help. In general, I always ask, how can I help, before I begin any aid, because the situation can look deceiving or pride can make people touchy about getting help too. The adage, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, can be negated only if you stop and ask first. If a friendship is all you're helping them or being helped, you're on maintain balance. The caregiver is a personality trait just as much as chatty or analytical. Still, you cannot fall into the habit of letting people grow dependent on you, or you grow codependent on them. Chapter 5, Step 5. Keep friends. We always think of taking things to the next level in terms of romantic relationships, but there are levels of platonic friendship too. Taking an acquaintance to friendship and a friendship to a more profound point still is something that ordinarily happens all by itself, but some of us might need a little nudge. Generally speaking, we share ourselves with people we are closer to, interact with them at a greater frequency, and are generally more generous too. Time, talking, and small favors all amount to a kind of currency. Our personal time is as essential to many of us as money itself. When we invest effort into a friendship and it fails to thrive, it can feel almost as heartbreaking as being rejected by a lover, but just like seeking a long-term relationship, we cannot let a setback become a stopping point. The favor bank is funny. As should be obvious, when we request a small thing from someone, we feel better about the person who helped us. However, brain scans have revealed we, the helper, like the person who asked the favor more too. As long as it is not too big and does not become routine, there is a two-way bond when we help each other out in small ways. However, the so-called favor bank is a bank, so make sure you observe the balance. All take and no give make both parties disrespect the other. Do not let yourself become a doormat, and at the same time, remember to reciprocate when it comes time for you to give a little of yourself. Do a few of the following throughout the year. Invite different groups or friends for larger gatherings, or keep it small with a few select persons. Hosts, dinner parties, sports viewings, holidays, birthdays, anniversaries, theme party. Offer to use your space. It will be a huge relief if the other person is worried about the impact. Giving your home to use is a risk, though, so don't do so unless you trust most of the guests. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, though, so throw the doors wide and let in the masses. Get in touch. It is all too easy to let friends drift away. Once enough time has gone by, the span itself becomes a perceived obstacle, and even more time goes by. It is never too late to contact an old friend, and it is almost a guarantee that the other party will be happy to hear from you. More times than not, the simple forces of life moving forward cause people to lose touch, and in the case of kindred spirits, it can feel like no time has gone by at all. Reach out and touch base. You'll be glad you did. Throw a reunion party. If it's been so long, mix new and old contacts and see who meets up. High school reunions can be fun or absolute torture. Find your own clique and make your own. The modern age made it pretty easy to look up old friends, and social media allows people to remain in contact with those who may never have been able to. Don't let the updates and shares fool you, though, and make sure you meet up in meet space if you value the friendship at all. What we share on those platforms is usually a pale sliver of our whole selves. Shake the family tree. Genetic tests have put people in touch with each other who didn't even know they existed. Email addresses and phone numbers are usually inclined with relations who have also used the service. You don't even have to go to the extreme of tagging your genome. Just begin calling family and seeing who knows you. Researching ancestors is fun, and doing so with family is so enriching. Overall, unless you have had to cut toxic people out of your life, don't let petty or even major conflicts permanently estrange your family. Occasionally, friends or family demonstrate an inability to function in a healthy and meaningful way. Maintaining healthy boundaries is a key to any long-term friendship, and if the other person demands much and gives little, it might be time to sever ties. We will get into the specifics of identifying and dealing with negative traits further on. Besties. Almost invariably, you will find a new friend with whom you really hit it off and spend most of your socializing with them. Or you can form or join a small club or group only to find that socializing takes priority. Many bridge clubs and reading groups wind up being for sitting around talking first and the point of focus a distant second. In these kinds of groups, be sure to remember balance and equity. When eating out in large groups, split the bill. If not everyone was drinking alcohol, separate the cost of drinks so non-drinkers don't get soaked. Let everyone have a turn picking the location or activity. Extend invitations to people you would like to see regardless of your expectation of them saying yes. Everyone wants to be invited, whether they are busy, tired, or slightly agoraphobic. Mix it up. If you always gather at the same place, try another. Favorite restaurants are great, but don't be afraid to try new things. Same with homes. One person might enjoy hosting or have a more comfortable home, but circulating to each other's place will keep conversations fresh and give one another a deeper appreciation of each other's lives. You form a pack and can socialize in tandem, working as a unit, in such tight-knit bunches. Make new friends, but keep the old. Some are silver, but the others are gold. I always thought that was an unkind adage, but you realize how true it is as time goes on. It might be based on shared belief or just uncanny clicking, but there are acquaintances and not so good of friends in our lives too. Unless you have definite reasons to exclude them, don't forget to include these folks in your medium or larger gatherings. You never know when someone's hidden corners will reveal themselves, and if you never give people a chance to surprise you, they never will. Forged in fire or bonded over time. Deep, meaningful friendships either flare to life spontaneously, meeting the other person like finding a long-lost sibling or another half of yourself, but usually it takes time or pressure. Like diamonds and metaphoric rock, the composition of your social connections changes when you go through an ordeal or spend long enough time together. The ordeal could be as bland as work or school, though the more mortal your peril, the more profound a bond is possible. Of course, too terrible in the sight of the other person can become a trigger. Army buddies are either fast friends or avoided. How trauma affects someone varies significantly from person to person. Those seeking to grow closer through this kind of activity should look toward backcountry camping or organized sports. Playing competitively or pitting yourself against nature will bring out the person's true self. Not that we deceive or hide, just that different aspects of our personalities come out when we are pushed to our limits. You can get away with the more low-key activities, but then it's a matter of time instead of sweat. Quick tips. Sustaining interactions, enriching or stimulating. Frequent, but not too much. Resist drifting apart. Host parties, little gatherings, or just lunch. Resolve conflicts as soon as you can. Push through temporary discomfort. Expect change. People are not static. We don't stay the same. Honesty and integrity in all your dealings, especially friendship. Support. Ask how you can encourage and aid them. Respect boundaries and take no for an answer. It can be challenging to articulate the nuances that go into forging solid bonds. Still, the points do a pretty good job contextualizing something that isn't usually conscious, though. Even if we grew up well-adjusted, raised by emotionally intelligent people, and learned this stuff intuitively, it can be a good idea to go over the particulars and check ourselves for hang-ups, bad habits, or blind spots. We all know by now that nobody is right all the time, but the flip side is we must admit when we are sometimes wrong, too. Be a friend. It really cannot be said enough. If you want stronger ties, be a stronger friend. Show up. Say yes. Be agreeable. All the while, make sure you're not overextending, giving too much or too little. Sometimes it becomes necessary to confront problem behavior or otherwise resolve a conflict in the course of a friendship. Many of us practice avoidance and ignore or turn from difficult situations. It is the mark of mature, strong personalities to grapple with the unpleasant as soon as it comes up instead of shoving it down. It is easy to laugh and have a good time, but true friends are the ones who stick around through thick and thin. Chapter 6, Step 6. Go deep. It's easy to be friends and generous with your time and resources when the times are good. It is easy to socialize and have fun while never scratching the surface. Over time, if you don't go deep at some point, you will either drift apart or blow apart. Life is unpredictable, and if your whole relationship is based on predictability, at some point, life is going to come crashing into the room. Some of our friends might be struggling. Sometimes you may feel inclined to help. It is crucial you announce your intent and then ask how you can help rather than just begin interfering. As mentioned, it may be foolish pride, or you may misunderstand the situation and make it worse. As much as we'd like to, sometimes we can't save someone from themselves, and all we can do is step back, cut ownership of their problems, and let the chips fall where they may. Observe, consider, and decide. Not everyone is strong in the personal reflection department, and what seems like an apparent conflict or eventual problem to you is not something they have even considered. Sometimes all you have to do is call attention to something. Other times the person will consider your words and decide they don't see it as a problem. You can lead a horse to water, but can't make them drink is true enough, though a good friend will at least try to point out how thirsty you are. Stretching the metaphor as far as it'll go, if you take the horse to the spring and try to make them drink, at best they'll sputter, choke, and gag, and at worst, you'll drown them and give them an aversion to water. Decoding the now tangled meaning there, you might just end up alienating the person or making them averse to seeking help in the future. An open hand, guided by example and with gentle encouragement, will always work better than browbeating or dragging them. Okay, now that you have decided to meddle in someone's life, you have decisions to make. Run toward danger. If you know a conversation will be difficult, you should have it as soon as possible. Procrastination is not a time management issue, but an emotional one, so get a hold of your fear and have the talk you need to have. Often we are far more worked up over a topic than the person is, and our tension and stress are wasted. Other times the person responds poorly, but as long as you use I statements and address the concepts surrounding the issue and not make it sound like a personal attack, you should be in the clear. Examples include, I feel you might be wrong about this. I feel your drinking is affecting your life in negative ways. I feel you may not be taking care of yourself. Deconstruction. When it comes time to get down to brass tacks, try to talk about ideas and concepts. Think about the motivations behind the behavior instead of dwelling on the behavior itself. If something someone does is bothering you, make sure you understand why before you launch into what they can do to change. Maybe the problem is you. If they cannot change something, or it's a minor characteristic trait that is not harming anyone, you might just have to work on changing your relationship to it. Complaining. When we hear someone complain, it can sound like a cry for help. It may be a plea for aid, but we hear it as a simple venting. When we see a friend is freaking out about something, we can ask ourselves, or even them, simple questions. Are you processing right now or looking for suggestions? Let the person know you hear they're upset and want to help while at the same time acknowledging that they may not be in an action-oriented mood and are just expressing themselves. Unsolicited advice usually doesn't go over very well, and your intent to help comes across as condescending or judgy. This is also gentle encouragement that there is an action stage, as to so many people get hung up on their complaints and anger, they wind up nursing the wound instead of healing it. Philosophy, religion, and spirituality. Sharing the same outlook will make these kinds of difficult conversations a little easier, because using a shared vocabulary and a mutually agreed upon belief system will make sure you don't have to stop and define your terms all the time. Even if you do not share their cosmology, knowing what they believe will make sure you will be able to couch your discussion in words they understand. As much as possible, make sure the conversation remains grounded in life. Faith is all fine and well, but agonizing over perceived spiritual crisis should always be balanced against real life. Usually, if someone is feeling like the forces of good and evil themselves are at work in their life, there's a reason for it. Seek out reactions. See if you can determine a cause-effect relationship triggering the problem, and treat that. Existential dread. Rooted in the word existence, existential is just a word that means problems relating to being a living being on Earth. Usually out of our control and universal, existential crises grip all of us at some time or another. Our ability to roll with it will be determined by our ability to let go of things we have no control over. Aging, children growing up, the classic death and taxes stuff can all pile up in our psyche if we are not careful. The so-called emotional baggage, a real problem in some people, make sure you're not lugging any around. The definition being cumbersome thoughts and behaviors resulting from reactions against past slights. Let go of the past, but focus on the here and now. You cannot undo mistakes of the past, but you can do everything in your power to make sure you aren't repeating mistakes. Enrich, explore, and enliven. Not everyone likes to have deep talks, but we all need to sometimes. While some folks whip out big ideas and begin asking your thoughts about God right away, others open up quite a bit slowly, if they do at all. There's nothing extraordinary about profound thoughts if you don't share them, and there are aspects of ourselves we do not really get in touch with unless we discuss them. When we share the parts of ourselves we barely acknowledge, we come to realize just how similar we are and how silly it is to be shy about sharing. The statement, "we have more in common than different," is intrinsic. It goes from the surface to the core. The more we talk about our fears, pains, and dread secrets, the more we realize everyone has the same or similar feelings. At the same time, we might discover that what we've been living under the pall of it's entirely benign. Having worked ourselves up into a froth over a thing to find it's easily resolvable or even all in our mind is a relief greater than you can imagine. Still, those deep, dark agonies are real at times, and there is no silver bullet for the inner demon that plagues you. In those cases, talking about it with yet more people is far better than bottling it up or limiting counsel to just one individual. The greater my dilemma, the more voices I like to get involved. While not everyone will have the same experiences, if you have gotten into the habit of looking at forces and influences instead of things and people, you should be able to gain insight from almost any source. Break it down. Money troubles are by far the most common. Using currency concerns as an example, it is past time to make a formal budget. If you don't know what the sum total, even roughly, of all your monthly expenses are, then tally them up and keep the figure handy. Can you downgrade, cancel, or readjust spending to free up some cash flow? How much are you eating out? Research menu planning and less expensive options. Is your career wasting your time? Make an improved resume, polish up some old skills, acquire new ones, and look at more lucrative job options. Love troubles can be circled around and studied too. Their occurrence in relationships almost like the currency of economics, and if you are not savvy to nonverbal and encoded messages, you can be caught off guard. Better yet, do not rely on analyzing and guesses. Intuition is a terrible way to navigate a complex topic like intimacy. Talk about feelings and discuss your past because you carry your early, loving relationships with you through life more than any other aspect of life. I keep hearing the expression love language, and it is true that not everyone will express love the same way. Talk about your upbringing. Talk about your first love and losses. Ultimately, the goal of deep talks is to make sure no topic is off limits. Trust is built, earned, and if it is lost, some people will never give it back. Chapter 7, Step 7. Build strong relationships. One should earn trust. Respect is a given up to a point, but genuine esteem and honor are built up over time. Growing stronger bonds is like nurturing a garden more than it is like constructing something. I cannot say, do A, B, and C, and the result will be X. Any more than you can scatter seeds and expect them all to become mature plants. We can do everything possible to foster goodwill and gain a closer relationship with someone, but that person is always an independent agent and may drift or even disappear. If you love something, set it free, and if it loves you back, it will return. If it doesn't, it was never meant to be, is of unknown origin but holds true. Making sure you do everything you can to encourage closeness without going total stalker is the final lesson. You have friends, you have the tools to maintain friendships and explore more profound aspects of life. What can we do to strengthen our solid connections into unbreakable bonds? Let it happen. Time and patience. Boundaries. Respect theirs, maintain yours. Get to know the individual, honor the individual. Be as good as your word. Hold them accountable. Respond to feedback. Give as good as you get. Mindful, reflective responses, not reactions or knee-jerk opinions. Having covered all the topics earlier, boundaries and accountability may be the only ones we haven't discussed in depth. Give people space and be sure you encourage consistency. What that means in a practical way is a little more complex, but pretty easy to understand, as they are human universals. Go, see, and do. Hobnobbing, chit-chat, and chewing the fat all sounds pretty passive. Do not let all your interactions with friends and loved ones be sedentary. Do things together. It is almost like young people know this instinctually. Kids are constantly exploring the world together. Teens go cruising, I think. And as adults, we can make friendships into lasting, deep kinships by dancing, camping, or taking classes. Even just going to new restaurants and into new shops achieve the same result. We often look for shared experiences when we form friendships, and lacking those but still enjoying one another's company. The best thing you can do is go out and make some. The decision itself can be illuminating as you, the two of or group try to come up with a shared activity. People's interests and aversions come to the fore. Watch for a dominant personality. Every group seems to have one, so see that they do not abuse their power, for it is power, minor and subjective though it may be, and some people must always be in control at all times. It may not even matter to the group if the gatherings are low-key, low commitment. Who cares if Jane always has to get her way or John calls all the shots when nobody else has a strong opinion, and everyone can leave when they want. These people should still be called out if not challenged, so at least you know if they are aware of their my way or the highway manner. More times than not, selfishness is innocent, myopic thinking, and unconscious egotism is usually the result of birth order or routine indulgence. Take a back seat. If the part before describes you, take your hands off the reins and let others in the group call the shots. Even if it's just conversational, if you see yourself sucking all the air out of a conversation, pause, apologize, and consciously let someone else hold the door. Sometimes, circles of friends will simply put someone in the de facto leadership position and decisions default to this person. Make sure it's because they are well-researched or at least well-reasoned, because more times than not, it is simply the most charismatic or talkative one who decides. Acceptance. Most of all, we have to take our friends at face value. This doesn't mean we judge them superficially, but it does mean we have to take them at their word. We can see things in people they do not possess. Our insistence that we are right and they are wrong about themselves can be a wedge that drives you apart. This extends to self-improvement and personal development too. I'm afraid as much as we love someone, it is not our place to tell them what to do. Live the example, offer help and support, but know that you cannot live a person's life of them. When we take the time to think about someone else's point of view, we enrich our understanding of the person and our ability to communicate with them. Humans' only constant is diversity. Not even twins are guaranteed to be the same. Space and boundaries. We all need me time. To varying degrees, that changes over time. Everyone needs to be alone and enjoy a little unfettered freedom. The practical application of respecting no is sometimes letting the person be by themselves. Even the most gregarious social butterfly needs to be still and turn within sometimes. If you disagree, if you always feel an unrelenting urge to be with people all the time no matter what, revisit Chapter 1's Date Yourself lesson. Even if you don't think you need it, humans do require even just a little personal time. Without a little me time, it can be easy to skip over deeper issues with superficial chatter or otherwise distract yourself with other tasks and topics. It is harder to run from ourselves when we are alone and we are forced to confront ourselves. If we have a healthy relationship with the self, this type of self-care is terrific. However, getting to this point can take practice, so if you find yourself at loose ends when by yourself, See if you can reflect on a source. Having tough talks with your inner self is just as important as any other friend. Accountability. We always want smooth sailing, and making waves can seem like avoidable friction. But time in life honors nothing, and the occupational conflict can arise. Broken promises and canceled plans have an accumulative effect, so mind you are keeping goals and sticking to your word. Trust is not something to squander. When we extend a friendship, we are usually trusting the person to reach back. At its most basic, mutual accord requires someone do what they say. It really cannot be overstated. If someone steals from you, lies, or manipulates you, leave them. You may be included to forgive someone once, but make it clear and in no uncertain terms, fool me twice, shame on you. Means the same thing as never be the same fool twice. We learn from our mistakes, or we never grow. If we continue to repeat the same error again and again, take a step back, analyze your feelings around the issue and why you might be hitting your head against a dead end. If they hit you, they do not love you. One abuser may insist they love you. If their love language is abusive in any way, you are encouraged to run, not walk, away as fast as you can. It is a personal problem on their end, and until they address it in a meaningful, lasting way, you owe it to yourself to stay away. Love involves a little personal sacrifice, as some of your free time is dedicated to another, but anyone that would ask you to suffer under their love is wrong. If you are in an abusive relationship, know that I emphasized abuse of all kinds, to include emotional and psychological abuse. We look for bruises or tears when we look for violence against each other, but manipulation and exploitation do not always look so obvious. Nobody gets to be right all the time, nor does anyone get to skate through life never apologizing. Apologies have to be accompanied by an effort to correct what was wrong, or an apparent effort not to offend again. Saying sorry, but continuing to offend is empty and a further offense. Unhealthy love languages and an upbringing full of conflict can make healthy relationships seem out of reach, but you have to know that most of us are survivors of damage. We can break even the unhealthiest cycles with patience and a willingness to change. Bad habits can be inner or outer in the form of negative self-talk, nervous tics, or addiction. It is difficult, if not impossible, to maintain strong friendships when you are struggling with behavior that feels out of your control. Beyond self-care, self-help. Compulsion, addiction, and dependency are all well understood psychological phenomena. Break vicious cycles by studying the thought-feeling-action cycle around it, stepping in the middle of that crucial circle of habit, and rerouting the pattern into a new one. Never easy, always a long-term process. Making lasting personal change is a little easier if you can replace problem behavior with a healthy one. Breaking bad habits fails more often when we make no effort to replace one activity with another. We all know that no jogging is probably not going to feel as good as, say, smoking, at least not at first, but jogging releases dopamine and other pleasure chemicals, and the same are true for all exercises and many activities. Nurture your nature. As a final word on building better bonds, play to your strengths as you play to theirs. Being alone together is totally a thing, as introvert pairs know pretty well. In general, circulating out in the world with a new friend is an excellent way to encourage rapid growth, as travel is enriching in general and you can do so together. Respect some folks who are the opposite and find the new experiences too overwhelming to socialize through. I invite those folks to confront those discomforts and seek help if the problem is insurmountable. Seeking a professional's advice, if not help, if you are unable to help yourself, is the last lesson in this guide. Sometimes a problem has a chemical root, and medication is the only way to feel normal. Other issues are too deeply buried or entrenched to resolve without a third party, so never be afraid of seeking aid. Conclusion. Never forget that friendship is a two-way street. Give as good as you get. Be sure it's not a one-way street, and everything should grow well. For the most part, a social connection should be stimulating and enjoyable. If you find yourself avoiding a person or situation, explore your feelings, and if you have to, write it out. You may find that the problems you have with other people are problems you have with yourself. Other conflicts arise organically from fundamental, meaningful disagreements. Whether or not you decide to let it go and move on or drop the person from your life and move on is up to you. But life does move on, and it takes effort and persistence to maintain lasting friendships. Take a stand or will not stand for it. Modern life has created artificial depth to minor issues, and more so than ever before, complex problems are being oversimplified and glossed over. Should politics play a role in your personal life? Religion has always been a prime motivator for social dynamics, so goodness knows there have always been wedge issues, but the longer we allow our list of deal breakers to grow, the smaller our friend circle is and the more narrow our point of view grows. Keep your horizons as wide as possible and your circle of friends as diverse as you can tolerate. Even if you think all that unity and peace stuff is BS, the potential for growth and new, better ideas grows exponentially the more voices we allow at the table. Reach out, reach back, just reach out and make contact. Plumb your past and look up old friends while sending feelers out to find new ones. Plants send taproots out into the soil around them to find fresh nutrients and moisture sources. Do that, but with your life. Explore conversationally. Do not assume the quiet person doesn't want to talk, but their body language, resting mean face, is often an illusion, so risk a friendly, polite greeting in passing. Be you, stay true. Nobody owes you a smile, though, so don't demand a positive reaction. At the same time, never feel obligated to respond to friendly advanced with anything more than polite indifference if you're not interested in reciprocating. Pleasers should learn they do not have to win everyone over, and loners should open up a little, let in a few people. Balance and moderation with your interpersonal communications make sure you are not burning yourself out or bottling yourself up. You can stay true to yourself while taking on aspects of those around you. Mirroring is when we start talking and acting like the people we wish to bond with, and it is primarily unconscious. Make sure the social groups you are attracted to are healthy ones, as often we can be attracted to particular cultural or even fashion traits, but the only people in our areas doing them can be selfish or rude. Be the change you want to see in the universe, and do you boldly go and do as you like. Nobody owns a style or clique, and you are always free to reinvent yourself. Make today the day you start talking more or less, and confidently hold forth on topics you are interested in, making it conceptual or idea-based, if not the thing itself. When we hold ourselves back from socializing, we rob not only ourselves of missed opportunists, but the world around us suffers from our lack of contribution.